Hey guys, welcome to the first video in the Minimalist Cave Photographer course. Now, before we dive into the real, meat and potatoes of this course, I wanted to go over some of the basic equipment that you're going to need to complete the assignments that we'll give you throughout this course, and really some of the minimal equipment that you need as a cave photographer to walk away with some unbelievable shots of the underground. So, let's go ahead and dive into the five pieces of equipment that you will need for this course. Really, now that I think about it, there are four things that you will absolutely need. One of those is optional, but really, really nice. I mean, it's going to save you a lot of time and energy. But like I said, only four of those are critical for this course. One is optional. So what are they? The first thing that you're going to need, no surprise, is a camera. You're not going to really be able to do much, if anything, if you don't have a freaking camera. So you're going to need a camera. But what camera do you need? I mean, there's so many options out there, and they can be kind of expensive. I mean, anywhere from like a few $100s to a few $1,000s. So what do you get? I mean, what option do you choose? Well, I'm here to tell you that in most cases it really doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter which camera you buy, but what matters are the features of that camera. The features that you are going to want to pay really close attention to is, first of all, you want a camera that has the ability to manually adjust the shutter speed, the aperture, and the ISO. Now, when I say shutter speed, aperture, ISO, if you're sitting there thinking, I have no idea what he's talking about, that's the reason why I've created and given you for free the Minimalist Basic Photographer course. So if those words don't make any sense to you, stop the video, go through the Minimalist Basic Photographer course, and you're going to come back knowing absolutely what those three things mean, and you're going to be able to breeze through this part of the course no problem. So if you don't know what they are, pause the video, go over to Minimalist Basic Photographer, watch it, and then come on back, and you're going to be well equipped here. So a camera that you can manually adjust shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. Now that could be kind of like what I use. I use the an SLR camera here, single lens reflex camera. You can detach the lens, you can do everything manual with one of these kind of cameras. Or it could be something like a point and shoot camera. And as long as it has those features, the ability to manually adjust the shutter speed, aperture, and ISO, you're going to be in a good place. So it doesn't matter the camera, it matters the features. The second thing that you're going to want is some sort of way to mount a tripod to your camera. You can see on my camera here, I've got a little screw hole. Most cameras are going to have that. If it doesn't have any way to mount it to a tripod, then don't use it. You're going to need to find something different. So the ability to stick a tripod to it. Next thing you're going to want to get is a camera that, the next feature you're going to want on your camera is some sort of a timer or cable release or remote control so that you can fire the camera, you can release the shutter without having to actually, push the shutter release on the camera. So if you've got a timer, you can push the shutter release and then let it sit for a second. That'll get rid of all the vibrations, and then step away and it'll take the picture. If you got a cable release, you don't actually have to touch it. And if you've got a remote, you don't have to touch your camera. So one of those things, and the timer should go up to at least 30 seconds. More is great. But if it's less than that, like only 5 seconds or 10 seconds, that may not be enough. So you want a timer that's going to, allow you to push the shutter, step away from the camera for 30 seconds or so, and then get your shot. So the last thing that you want, and this isn't required, but it's going to allow you to do some really cool things, and that is video capabilities. So your camera that takes still pictures, if it does video as well, that's going to be an added bonus, because later in the course, I'm going to show you how you can do some really cool effects with video and with stills in the same camera to create images that look like you've done this video where the entire cave is lit up and you've got the little caver kind of walking through. So I'm going to show you how to do that with a camera that has, video features in it. So, okay. That's all you need to know with camera. So the first thing you need is camera with those features. Again, it doesn't matter the brand. It doesn't matter the cost. All it matters is those features. In fact, I would recommend that you go with a lower cost camera just so that you're not worried through the entire trip that you're going to break a $5,000 camera and, that's going to just stress you out. We don't want that to happen. So, camera. Next thing you're going to want to get is a sturdy tripod. Now, the key here being sturdy. But there are a lot of tripod options. I mean, you can get tripods at Walmart. You can get them through B&H Photo. You can get them all over the place. So which tripod do you want? How much do you need to spend? Like, where do you start? So the tripod I use, which I can't show you right now because it's holding up the camera that we're shooting this course on, but I typically go with something in the $100 to $150 range. What you want to look for when you're purchasing a tripod is there's a couple of things. One is how sturdy and rugged is it? I mean, can it survive a pretty good beating? Something that you get at Walmart, and I know from experience, something you get from Walmart in a pretty rugged cave trip is most likely not even going to survive to the first shot. So get something that's rugged and sturdy and durable. The next thing you want is a tripod that's going to lock down. So you want to lock all of the joints and all the connection points and everything down so that when you go to take the picture, you don't lock it down and your camera just kind of gradually does this as you're taking the shot, because that's going to mess everything up. So you want it to lock down really solid so your camera doesn't budge an inch during the shot. And the last thing that you want is something that you can pack down relatively small and is fairly lightweight because, we're cavers. We're going to be traveling. We have to hike probably a ways to the cave, and then we're going to be traveling through the cave, and you don't want a lot of extra weight kind of bogging you down. I have my tripod packs down. It's probably about that big around when it's folded and like that long. So something like that, works really well for me. And lots of options out there, but those are some things that you're going to want to look for in a tripod. Okay, the next piece of equipment that you're going to want to get are some flashes. And not just any flashes, but flashes that are not permanently fixed to your camera. You want to be able to pull that flash off and walk it around anywhere in the room or the passage or wherever. So flashes, it could be anything from, something as simple as this little Canon flash that I've got to one of these bigger flashes, kind of like this Yongnuo flash that I have. And the thing to pay attention to on flashes, what I look for is something that is not ridiculously expensive because, again, it's caving. I'm going to throw it around. It's going to get beat up. So as inexpensive as I can go, but yet something as powerful as I can get. And the power of the flash is measured in the guide number. So the higher the guide number, the more of an output you're going to get here with your flash. So the brighter the light is going to go out of your flash. I think this thing is probably around, I don't know, maybe, I can't even remember right now. It's like 120 maybe guide number, something like that, around 100, 120, maybe a little bit more. I don't know. I'll look it up and then I'll post it here on the course so that you can kind of get a sense of a good range. This one's going to have a much smaller guide number, but look at the guide number. Make sure you get something that's higher and higher, as high as you can possibly afford, and isn't too ridiculously expensive in flashes. But you want to be able to take them off of the camera and walk around, and then be able to manually fire them. If they don't have a way to click a little button to manually fire them, then you probably don't want that. What I use, you're probably wondering, is so I've got this. This is actually just a recent purchase, and the reason why I bought this what did I say it was, Young Nuo flash, is because the flashes that I really love, and you're probably going to hear about these, the Vivitar 285s. These flashes here, the Vivitars, they don't actually manufacture them anymore. I was so bummed when I went to purchase replacement Vivitars and they were gone. And in fact, I went on and I looked for some Vivitar and I noticed there were a couple of other flashes they got, so I ordered them. And when I got them and took them into the first cave, they were utterly destroyed within, like, before I even got back to where I was going to shoot. I got back, pulled them out of the bag, and they just like fell apart. It was crazy. So Vivitar used to be a really solid company that produced some amazing flashes. Now, from what I've noticed, they're pieces of crap. So just because I use a Vivitar 285, I don't recommend going with Vivitar. If you can find an old Vivitar 285, go for it. High guide number, inexpensive, and super durable. So now, what I did after I did a search online to see what I could, what I could find that might be comparable, and that's when I found this Young Nuo flash. It's a YN660 Speedlight. Seems like it's done pretty well. I've taken it on 3 or 4 caving trips, and the great thing about these two, it's got a good range. And another thing you want to consider with flash is the ability to adjust the brightness, so you can go really bright and kind of dim it down. This one gives you the ability to do that. It also has radio slave features and kind of light slave features. So it's got some pretty good stuff, and the price wasn't too much. Can't remember the exact price, but you can go look it up and kind of see what it is. Probably around $100 or something like that. So anyway, you're going to want a couple, as many as you can get. You don't have to get a ridiculous amount, but 3 or 4 flashes that you can take off the camera. That'd be great. Okay. See, next thing that you want to have for this course, and this is the thing that sort of goes along with flashes. And that I said was not really required, but it's really, really nice to have. They make photography underground go a lot faster and smoother. But like I said, you can make do without these with no problem and walk away with unbelievable shots. What they are radio slaves. So here's an example of the radio slaves that I use. These are Velo radio slaves, and really the brand is irrelevant. I mean, there's a lot of good options out there. I know there are photographers that use different radio slaves, but what radio slaves are is basically there's a receiver or a transmitter and a receiver. The transmitter connects to the top of your camera, and whenever it fires off, it sends out a signal that goes to the receiver, and that's where your flash is attached to, which signals to the receiver to go ahead and fire off the flash. Now, the beauty of radio slaves over these light slaves that send out light, and then there's a sensor that detects the light and fires a flash, is that with light slaves, there's typically a shadow zone. So if your light is, or if your flash is kind of in the shadow of a rock from where the central flash is firing off of, then it may not fire. If your flash is too far away, it may not fire. Radio slaves, when these things fire off, the range is pretty far. In fact, whenever you go to purchase your radio slaves, it'll typically list a range. But I've noticed that there's not really issues with like a shadow zone, and they fire off wherever they are in the cave. So they're awesome. Really great purchase. But again, like I said, not required for this course. You can walk away with unbelievable shots without slaves, but they do definitely make the process of photographing caves so much easier and so much smoother. So if you can't afford these right now, you're kind of maxed out on your budget, just wait. Try some of the techniques we're going to talk about, and then you can always go back and purchase them and just see how much of a difference they make. All right, the last thing that you're going to need, and this is required you could not have this next thing, but I think you're going to want it, and that is some sort of protection for your equipment. You definitely want your equipment to last, especially if you're investing a lot of money in it. You don't want it to get beat up and destroyed on the first trip, so you're going to need some way to protect it. what I use, in fact, well, actually, before I go through what I use, I want to talk about three things that you're going to need to look for when it comes to protecting your equipment. The first thing is the durability of the case. Is it durable? Can you beat the snot out of that thing and your equipment inside goes unharmed? So is it durable? Will it hold up in the cave environment and protect your equipment? Next, is it accessible? What I mean by accessible is if you're crawling through a passage and you're covered from head to toe in mud and you're trying to finagle through your pack and pull your gear out and undo straps and your fingers are like all muddy and you can't quite click the little click thing, that's not accessible. You want it to be as easily accessible as possible so that you can get to your gear, get it out, do the shot, move on, and move as quickly as possible. Because if not, we know what's going to happen with the friends who have come along to help you with your photography. They're not going to be your friends anymore. They're going to mutiny and walk out because you're taking forever. They're freezing their butt off, and just get something that's accessible. The next thing is packability. You want to make sure that that equipment can pack easily in your backpack or whatever you need to carry it in, and it's not getting snagged on stuff as you're going through the cave. It's not like so tight in your pack that you can't get it out. That violates the accessibility thing. So you want to make sure that it's packable. So let me show you the pieces of well, it's not equipment, the cases that I use to carry my equipment in, and maybe that'll give you some ideas. So what I use for my camera typically is just this kind of flimsy, but it's nicely padded. It's a low pro case, and it doesn't, like, the brand doesn't matter. I mean, you can use anything. So my camera goes in here, and then I can fit in my cable release or my remote, maybe a flash or some extra batteries and stuff. And the nice thing about this case is that once it's closed and zipped up, even though like it's not going to do so well if I'm smashing it against like a hard rock, but the beauty of it is that this is small and it fits in my Petzl pack, my like PVC pack, and it's really easy to pull in and out. And there's enough padding that I haven't had any issues. And the camera I carry in here is a Canon, let's see, what is it? A Canon 7D is the camera that I carry in here. It's like a $2,000 camera. And, you know, I've thrown it around. I don't typically, you know, chuck it across like a 50-foot pit, but I've tossed it through some tight holes and it's done pretty well. So that's what I use for my camera. My flashes, typically I just hand them to friends and they shove them in their backpacks. But if I'm going on a little more of a lengthy trip, then I carry my flashes in this Pelican case, which these Pelican cases are great. They're super durable. You know, they're really easy to access because you just got a couple of straps or a couple of what are these things called? These thingies here to open up the case. So it's pretty easy to get into. And the downside of these, like this is like the medium-sized one. The downside of this is that it's not super packable. It doesn't fit in my backpack, and if I have somebody take a beaner and clip it to their pack, it's kind of gets in the way. It's hard to crawl through tight stuff. I mean, you can shove it through and stuff, but it's heavier too. It's a lot heavier than this other case. So like I said, typically I use this to carry on, you know, some of the more serious trips, or if I just want to keep it all together. But typically when I get to the cave, I hand out the flashes to my buddies and they slap it in their backpack and then we're good to go. So lightweight and easy for them. So hopefully that gives you some ideas of some of the basic equipment that you're going to need. Like I said, you know, the equipment you get, like if you're wondering brand or like which style or whatever, like it doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is that you have the features we've talked about. So with the camera, those manual adjustments, the ability to mount on a tripod, a timer, or some sort of remote, and if you can get a camera that captures video as well as stills, bonus. Tripod that's sturdy, locks down really hard, and you can beat the crap out of, lightweight and easy to pack. flashes that you can take off of the camera and move around. Radio slaves, nice, not required. And last of all, the protection that's durable, accessible, and packable. So whichever brand, however much you pay, doesn't matter at all as long as you have those features. Okay, one last thing that I want to say here on gear before we wrap up and I give you a quick assignment, and that is that keep in mind that your gear really is, it's a lot tougher than you think. So the first time you go in a cave with your camera and stuff, if you're anything like me, that first time I'm just like, it's like driving home from the hospital with like my son or my daughter when they were born. Like every little bump, you drive home like 5 miles an hour. You're staying like, instead of like the 3-second rule behind cars, you're like 30 seconds behind them. So you're being really, really careful. The reality is that equipment is a lot tougher than you think. After a while, I think you'll kind of get a sense of what you can do, how you can, shove it around and whatever, and realize that the fear of losing it is kind of unsubstantial, unless you're really careless or chucking it around or some freak accident happens. But it's tougher than you think, and you don't need to get the best of the best. Just what we've talked about, you'll be good. Okay, so assignment moving forward. So what I want you to do before we go to the next video, and I want to say too that these assignments are important. Anytime I give you an assignment at the end of a video, do it. Because if you don't do, you don't learn. So you need to make sure that whatever assignment I give you, you take it, you roll with it, and then you'll be that much more prepared for the next video and the next assignment. So your assignment before you move into the next class is to go purchase your equipment, make sure you've got all of the things that we've talked about, that it's functioning, that you've kind of figured it out, and that you're ready to roll, because you're going to need that equipment for the next assignment. So until then, I'll see you in the next video. Good luck.